Welcome to INTJ Island. Today, I'm going to discuss how an INTJ engages in argument and debate. In my Christopher Hitchens video, I discussed his ability to debate others on topics that he felt were important. But today, I would like to look at debate and argument a little closer. Hitchens created logical arguments and then presented them not in order to persuade his opponent that his line of reasoning was correct, but rather to convince the audience that he was correct. He put forth evidence and reasoning in order to create an intellectual dish like a mental chef, and he brushed away the arguments of his opponent like so many flies trying to invade his creation. People who do this repeatedly tend to find certain ideas and ways of phrasing things that hang together well and that have a poetic ring to them, which helps to drive their points home to an audience. It is why, when you watch many debates by the same man, they will have some amount of repetition to them. One of the advantages that the INTJ mind has when getting into a public debate is that we are not naturally drawn towards being in front of people and talking to large audiences. We have to train ourselves to deal with that, even when the audience is friendly. But when it comes to debate or giving a speech in front of a potentially hostile audience, it takes this to the next level. My primary goal in such a case would be to make sure that whatever I put forward would be unassailable. That means I would go over the points I plan to make over and over again in my head, looking for flaws. What could be attacked and how? I would then strengthen that area of my initial presentation. We have a strong ability to find flaws in systems, and a complex set of arguments tied together in order to form an idea we are presenting or defending is indeed such a system. First, you have to establish your starting point, created by your premises, from which all else will flow. These need to be firmly established if you want your argument to appear credible. If you are using an axiom, it needs to be self-evidently true, something that any reasonable person would accept as being valid. If you start badly, you almost certainly will finish badly. Even if you should overcome a bad start, you will know in your heart that it was not a stellar performance. And you know that it is your own assessment of how you did that really matters to you. If you don't convince a horse to drink, you still know that you got him to the water, and the water was good and fresh, by which he could have quenched his thirst. I have demonstrated an ability to argue both sides of a question fairly well in the past. Years ago, in the 1980s, before email or the internet we enjoy today, they came up with an idea of a bulletin board system, or a BBS. People would buy a computer and install a phone line into their homes and dedicate them both to a BBS. The phone numbers were distributed usually through other BBS sites. I had a 300 baud modem, and if you consider that each character took 8 bits or 1 byte, that is less than 38 characters per second. On average, words are about 5 characters long, so I could only transmit or receive around 7.5 words per second. At 450 words per minute, it was faster than a human could type, but I could still read as fast as the data was coming in. At that slow speed, there were no pictures, of course, other than images created from text. I got involved with 2 types of sites, debating politics and debating religion. I enjoyed the debating so much that I spent nearly an entire month doing it when I took 30 days leave from the Navy one summer and invested the time in this. I have a very understanding ESTP wife, I assure you. She put up with me being in my study hours at a time, day after day, typing away on these systems. It was almost like a drug, and I was addicted to making my point effectively, over a wide array of related topics. But when things slowed down and no one was posting new material, what I did was to sign in with a different persona using a different name, and I would argue the opposite side of something in order to keep the ball in play. I could do fundamentalist Christian and I could do atheist. I could do someone on the right or someone on the left. I found cracks in other people's arguments and drove a verbal wedge into them. I remember one time where I finally shattered one guy's argument and I walked away. A guy who was in support of my position wrote that I had him on the run. Why did I quit? The fact was that I wasn't arguing for other people. I was arguing for myself to establish in my own mind that I was supporting a valid position. That was a very important month in my life. It formed a two-edged sword in that it sharpened my ability to create a good argument and find flaws in bad arguments, And it also helped to hone my own ideas and what I fully embraced by putting them through the fire and tempering them. It was fun, and it was educational, and it was a very good use of my time, even though others might not have agreed with that assessment at the time. After doing that, I could easily spot when someone was trying to pull a fast one on me by dodging the point I was making. The nice thing about BBSs, unlike many forums today, the venue was neither a flaming war pit nor an echo chamber. For the most part, people who were tech-savvy enough to be involved with the BBS system were not touchy-feely morons who couldn't reason at all with facts and evidence. On the other hand, they were not all chanting the same unthinking phrases and ideas that they learned from their friends or from their TV talking head propagandists. It was a rich field of thinking minds where I could happily engage in intelligent debate and argument. But argument need not be a debate. We often need to persuade, or to be persuaded, non-confrontationally. You have an idea of how something could be done, or if you're even more sure of the value of your idea, should be done. You are working with someone else who will participate in this activity or project, and he needs to be on board with what method will be used. He may have another idea that he feels is the right way to move forward. One issue you will face in life is that you come into situations where the majority rules, and then your ability to convince the others can be critical to success. Benjamin Franklin stated it very well when he said, "Democracy is two wolves and a sheep voting on what's for dinner." It would be just as true when any two disparate groups are voting on something that is very good for one group but horrible for the other, and one side is larger in number than the other. I don't care how eloquent that sheep is, he is going to be the main course that night. But usually, when you are faced with a group of co-workers, things are not that unbalanced in aim, and you will be able to state your case for them to hear. If they are willing to listen to your case, you have an opportunity to move the group in the direction you envision. When you are there, talking to the group, it is important to argue the strength of your idea in a way they can follow, and also, this is very important, it will enhance their own ability to move forward easily. Self-interest is a strong motivator at such times. Of course, it varies with circumstances, but often people are more interested in how easy it will be than how successful it will be at the end. You personally care about the final results, but when you are persuading others, you have to consider their self-interest. Maybe your way will be more difficult for a short time, but then they will be done and can go home early or do something else that is more enjoyable to them than working on this task. You might even be putting your arguments to your boss, and then you would point out how using your method will make him look better to his own superiors. This is something that always bugged me. You can't just solve the problem itself. You have to also include making it better for other people who, if they were like you, would only care about getting the job done quickly and effectively. A final point on argument with the INTJ. We do compete in the mental world and we do like to win. But even more, we like to be right. Supporting a valid position is rewarding clear down to the bone. You have researched it and you know your position is correct and you are happy to defend it. If anyone attacks what you know to be true and he expects you to acknowledge that he is right in his assertion, you will be tenacious in rebuttal, like a badger defending his hole in the ground. If I am not pushed to agree, I tend to ignore idiots making stupid assertions. I have to ignore 90% of the nonsense I see in the world because it is like trying to empty the ocean with a teaspoon, attempting to inspire people to think logically and to stop being stupid. People say things to me, and I blink, and often I will squint my eyes, and if I am paying attention to my face, which I usually am not, I would realize that my brow is suddenly cut with deep lines as I take in what is being said. At some point, I will decide either to engage in this discussion or not. Usually I end up nodding my head and say something like, "That is interesting," and walk away. I no longer take joy in crushing an opponent in debate. One look at the IQ curve tells you that most of the time it is a battle of wits with an unarmed opponent. Rather, what I evaluate is whether or not this person is worthy of my time. This is not at all as haughty as it sounds. I mean that I decide whether or not the other party has sufficient intelligence to follow what I will say next, or if I will fall into a whirlpool of wasted time where my ideas are set aside in favor of his own recitations of memorized dogmatic assumptions. I don't mind being unsuccessful at persuasion, as long as I am being given a legitimate hearing. But decades ago I read a very helpful quote that was attributed to Daniel Webster. It is impossible to win at debate with a fool. Sadly, I have not been able to verify that source. But wherever it came from originally, it has been of tremendous help to me in the amount of time I have avoided wasting trying to get a fool to reason with me. I lead with listening. I follow that with evaluation. And only then do I decide whether or not to engage. And if I engage, I proceed with intent on reaching the intellect that I think I have perceived in the other person. The more years I live, the more selective I have become in whom or what I will invest my time. However, if I jump into a debate, I jump in all the way, and I will continue on until either I have made my case, or he has made his, or I find that I was wrong and the other party is unable to reason logically. Do you enjoy debating with others? Do you enjoy watching professionals like Christopher Hitchens working a podium and a microphone like a virtuoso works a violin? If argument, debate, and persuasion are things you enjoy engaging in, please let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, please click like. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do. If you click on the bell, you will also receive notifications when I put up a new video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.